Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving into some sources that really challenge, the most fundamental rule of economics,
Yeah.
scarcity.
Right. For centuries, economics has been about managing limits. How do we allocate scarce resources?
But now technology seems to be changing that whole picture, promising something closer to abundance.
Exactly. And our mission here is to explore what the sources call the principle of systemic generativity and promised value, PSGPV for short.
PSGPV. Okay.
Think of it as a kind of new rule. The focus has to be on maximizing what we can produce, our generative capacity, and ensuring everyone can actually get it, fulfilling the promise, basically.
So the big takeaway, the shock summary, is that maybe our economic problems aren't about running out of things.
Less about that, yes, and more about fulfilling a kind of social promise. It's about coordination, not absolute lack.
Which I guess brings us straight to money itself. If we're not short on resources, why do we have financial panics?
Well, the sources define money quite differently, not as some scarce commodity, but more like a liability, a promissory note, an IOU from whoever issues it, usually the government.
The chartalist view, or
Yeah.
modern monetary theory.
That's the one. And what's fascinating is what actually backs this promise. It's not gold, not anymore.
So what is it?
It's our collective ability to produce things, our community's productive capacity, the actual goods and services we can deliver. Social credit theory had a term for this, real credit.
Real credit. Okay. But hang on, if money is just a promise backed by our capacity to make stuff, why do we act like we're broke sometimes?
Good
If
question.
the crisis isn't a lack of dollars, but a failure to coordinate, why can't we just, mobilize the resources we obviously have?
That's the critical point the sources make. It's a coordination failure. We might have the potential, the capacity for abundance, but our systems, our rules, fail to connect that capacity with people's needs.
So the promise isn't being redeemed because the system's jammed up somehow.
Precisely. To get why this is such a shift, you have to remember where scarcity economics came from. Think classical guys, Ricardo, Smith.
Right. Their world was defined by fixed factors. Land was the big one.
Exactly. And that gave us ideas like the law of diminishing returns. Put more work into fixed land, get less back eventually.
And economic rent value captured just by owning the scarce thing.
Yes.
Oh.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Technology, or generativity, is dissolving those fixed constraints.
How so?
Two massive ways. First, knowledge abundance. Think about information, software. It's non-rivalrous.
Meaning if I use it, you still have it, unlike, say, a sandwich.
Exactly. And copying it costs practically nothing. It approaches zero marginal cost, ZMC. That completely messes with traditional market pricing, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Okay, that's information. What's the second way?
Countering physical scarcity. The sources point to things like space mining. Suddenly, finite stuff on Earth isn't so finite if you can get it from asteroids.
Right, turning stock into potential flow.
And synthetic biology. Imagine generative manufacturing, building complex things on demand from really abundant inputs, like CO2 even. We're basically engineering our way past old limits.
Wow. Okay, so abundance of information, abundance of physical stuff. Sounds great. So problem solved.
Well, no. Abundance doesn't mean utopia. It just shifts the problem. The bottleneck moves.
If goods are cheap and plentiful, what becomes scarce?
The fixed human factors. Your attention. Your cognitive capacity.
Right. Information overload. My focus is now the scarce commodity everyone wants a piece of.
It's being treated exactly like an economic commodity. But there's a bigger, perhaps more political bottleneck too.
Yes.
Distributional scarcity. The fact that we have poverty despite this incredible, near limitless productive potential. Well, the sources argue that's proof of a massive political and institutional failure.
Scarcity amidst abundance. So the wealth being generated isn't getting distributed. It's being captured or hoarded.
That's the argument. Concentrated ownership, maybe just plain old greed, preventing the abundance from reaching everyone.
Which brings us back to that PSGPV thing. If we can produce enough, the economic game has to change.
Right. The principle of systemic generativity and promised value says focus must shift. Maximize generative capacity, yes, but crucially, maximize promise value fulfillment. Ensure access.
Make sure the promise is kept.
And that leads to policy ideas. If automation makes human labor less scarce, less needed for production itself, how do you ensure people can still buy things?
Okay, so things like universal basic income, UBI.
The sources propose mechanisms like UBI as essential. It's presented as a way to distribute the gains from technology, aligning purchasing power with productive capacity. It's about redeeming that societal promise, stabilizing the whole system.
So wrapping this up,
Yeah.
What's the big picture here? If value creation isn't the bottleneck anymore,
Then the focus has to shift, maybe from just financial stability in the old sense towards broader societal resilience, and definitely towards distributional equity.
we're not arguing if the pie can grow anymore. It clearly can. The argument is about how everyone gets a slice.
Exactly, and that leaves a pretty big question for you, the listener, to think about.
Go on.
If your income, your basic security, isn't tied directly to your scarce labor anymore, what activities should society decide are valuable? What should we fund as public goods?
Like basic research?
Ah,
Creative work that doesn't fit the market model.
perhaps. How do we value those things, the very things that often drive future abundance? That's something for you to maybe explore on your own.